She thought dealing with her toxic, abusive ex was hell, until he died, came back as a demon, and brought his entire family with him. The film begins with a young man named Joseph Price looking through recordings and documents left by his grandfather Benjamin as he discusses the Necronomicon and how many have summoned the evil creatures known as Deadites by reading the unholy incantations, unaware that the curse is already bleeding into the world nearby. At a neighboring lake, two friends, Jared and Leo, gather to fish in what should be a peaceful afternoon. But when Leo steps away to take a phone call, Jared's fishing hook is violently pulled in. Jared reels something in, which turns out to be a partially decomposed human head, and before he can even react, his hook gets yanked again, sending both hooks jumping back out of the lake to snag onto Jared's face and drag him into the abyss. Leo finds Jared in the middle of the lake and uses his boat to go rescue him, but by the time he reaches him, Jared's face appears to have been mutilated, and Leo is suddenly confronted by Deadite Jessica, the lake girl possessed in the last film, who flips over his boat and boils him alive in the water until he lives just long enough to crawl to shore before dying as the skin slides right off his bones. Meanwhile, Joseph is celebrating his birthday at a nightclub with his girlfriend Thaya, his brother Will, and Will's wife Alice. But the celebration is cut short when the latter two get into a frequent argument because Will is horribly abusive towards Alice, both verbally and physically. He chastises her for smoking a cigarette when he wants to have a kid, blaming her for his own toxic behavior until Alice has had enough and tells Will to go to hell, prompting a drunken Will to take his car out despite Joseph trying to stop him. Will speeds down the street until he slams directly into Jessica, causing his car to flip and go into a ditch where he tries to free himself. But Jessica taunts him by saying the Deadites are now going after his family just before the car catches fire and Will burns to death. Later, Alice is joined by Joseph and Thaya as they go to Will's funeral, meeting with his parents Edgar and Susan and grandmother Polly, who suffers from dementia. Although Susan seems polite towards Alice, it's clear both she and Edgar hold deep animosity towards her, especially since she shows up to the funeral in a hoodie, sweats, and sneakers, displaying no visible grief over her abuser's death. The cremator, Mike, gets ready to put Will's body in for the process until Edgar comes in and requests one last moment to say goodbye to his son. But once Edgar is left alone, he hears knocking coming from inside the casket. Edgar starts to break it open, only for Deadite Will to emerge and grab his father's arm, infecting him with the Deadite curse before tearing Mike apart when he comes in to see what is happening. The family goes back to the Price home, where most of Benjamin's stuff is kept in the attic, and while Joseph is curious about it, Susan warns him that her father was not a good man, completely unaware that the curse has already taken control of Edgar. Alice walks in and finds Edgar about to cut his wrist, but she manages to take the knife from him and holds on to it before everyone gathers for dinner. Things get heated since the Prices are all making their feelings toward Alice known by blaming her for Will's death, and the argument escalates to the point where Edgar grabs a corkscrew and viciously stabs the family dog Max to death before collapsing. Joseph and Thaya rush Edgar to the hospital, while Alice helps Susan bury Max. But as Joseph tries to help his father in the car, the Deadite self fully takes over Edgar, and he starts attacking Thaya as she drives. He stabs her, claws her face, severs the fingers on her left hand by slamming the door on them, and then finally impales her through the head and neck with the top of the car seat after the car violently crashes. Back at the house, Alice comes across Benjamin's work on the Necronomicon and learns about all the past horrors that occurred by the Deadites, beginning to read the unholy incantation that summons the beasts. But she stops on the last words and says, "Fuck this," just as a Deadite-possessed Max bursts through the window, causing her to run back inside. Joseph also returns in shock, right before Deadite Thaya arrives at the house, dripping blood everywhere, and telling the family that Benjamin had something they want. She proceeds to attack, forcing Alice, Joseph, Susan, and Polly outside after they manage to lock her in a room. But there they see Edgar with Max, and Edgar shoots himself in the head 3 times just to blow holes out. Thaya breaks out of the room and continues her attack on the family, causing Joseph to fall backwards onto an improperly loaded dishwasher where he gets stabbed by the upturned forks and knives. Joseph stabs her in the neck, but it doesn't do anything to her, and Thea then takes Polly's dentures out, puts them in her own mouth, and gives them back to Polly, infecting her with Deadite blood before Joseph manages to catch Thea and kill her by smashing her face in until most of her head is gone. As Alice and Joseph try to figure out their next move, Polly becomes a Deadite, which oddly makes Susan happy since her mother is now lucid and mobile. Edgar then emerges from the window, and Susan kisses him as she embraces the prospect of joining them as Deadites, subsequently finding Joseph and telling him to give them what they want, an item called the Kandarian dagger, which Benjamin had written would be the only thing that can truly remove a Deadite from a human body. Susan, Edgar, and Polly begin rampaging around the house while Alice tries to crawl away to safety, but Joseph is grabbed and turned as well. Alice grabs a weed whacker as a weapon, but Polly overpowers her and nearly makes Susan turn it on to shred Alice's face, until Alice grabs a glass shard and stabs Polly in the eye before hooking her to her stair lift. Alice grabs Susan and brings her into a bathroom to lock themselves away, where Susan continues to blame Alice for Will's death until Alice has enough and shows Susan a scar on her abdomen caused by Will pushing her and causing boiling water to spill on her. She screams that she is fed up with his parents making excuses for the fact that they knew he was an abusive spouse and did nothing about it. Alice tries to make it to the attic to get the dagger, but Susan is now a full Deadite and attacks her to stop her, forcing Alice to free herself and use the weed whacker to rip into Susan's body. Alice gets to the attic and scrambles to find the dagger among dozens of knives as Joseph, now a Deadite, tries to get her, but she finds the dagger and stabs him, freeing his soul from the curse before he dies. Susan and Edgar then chase after Alice, who escapes through the roof, takes a match, and ignites fuel that Thea had earlier spread around, setting the house ablaze and burning Susan and Edgar to death. Deadite Max makes one last lunge toward Alice, but she uses the dagger to put him down for good, only for Deadite Will to emerge from the burning house to go after her. He chases her to a nearby construction site and throws her into a pit, preparing to drown her in hot tar before she escapes and grabs a jackhammer to obliterate him. Even as he rises from the bubbling tar, she uses the dagger and sticks it in Will's neck, seeing a brief vision of Will as a human, saying how much he loves her, but Alice says it's not enough and tears his Deadite head to pieces, finally rid of Will for good. Alice is later found by police and paramedics, and when the medic asks her who hurt her, she simply says, "My ex-husband," before smoking a cigarette given to her by the medic. The nightmare, however, is far from over, as a mid-credit scene reveals that Deadite Polly is still alive, since she cut her leg off to escape before the house caught fire, and she is soon found by a driver on the side of the road, where she feigns injury before scratching the woman's leg to infect her with the Deadite curse. Finally, a post-credit scene shows the manager of a crematorium bringing her daughter in, where the girl sees an urn containing the unclaimed ashes of Ellie Bixler. The girl touches it, and Ellie's spirit first appears as her human self in a reflection to the girl, before her terrifying Deadite form emerges and brutally splits the girl's neck open, declaring with a malicious grin, "Mommy's